Hey y'all, how are you doing? I'm great, thank you so much for asking. It's me, Kim, and I'm back for another video. At the beginning of the year, the Netflix algorithms convinced me to watch Kevin Hart's Netflix series called Don't Fuck This Up. It's a 6-part docu-series that follows Kevin Hart's life and career. Admittedly, I'm not really a Kevin Hart fan, and I didn't come away from this series a Kevin Hart fan, but I didn't come away from it liking him less, which is amazing. And I think that after sitting through those 6 episodes, which was too many episodes, by the way, too much fluff, but after sitting through the series, I felt like I now have a better understanding of who Kevin Hart wants us to think he is, but also, unbeknownst to him, I also feel like I have better insight into who he actually is. In all of that posturing and performance and manipulation, it is possible if you watch closely to read between the lines. This series was low-key a rare kind of commentary on Black masculinity. This is a Black man trying to do good, and he deeply wants to do good, but like, fucking it up in lots of very easily preventable ways. From the start, there's a lot of emphasis on Kevin Hart's work ethic. He works so hard, he gets up at 6 a.m. because nobody else will do it. He is working 24 hours a day. He doesn't take breaks. Do you take breaks? It's like, okay, we get it. It's boring, it's tiring, we've seen it. And from the start, we also see that a lot of Kevin Hart's friends are also his employees. Maybe most of them are his employees, which is messy and complicated, but we'll come back to that. And the most endearing part of this series is Kevin talking about how much he loves his mom. He clearly adored her. He was raised in Philadelphia. They didn't have a lot of money. His father was an addict, and she did everything that she could to make him be a success. And unfortunately, she died from ovarian cancer before he became successful.
On the brink of my success on the highest level, my mom passed away. So my mom never came to any shows. Never, not one time.
Kevin had it hard. He did not have an easy life at all. And another thing that really made me sad while watching this was seeing the number of times he went out of his way to say, I'm okay, it doesn't affect me, I'm okay. And I'm like, are you sure?
So I can talk about my dad's mistakes. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't make me feel away. I'm not emotional and damaged because of it. Thank God.
It's not realistic. Dr. Nadine Burke talks about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and how the horrible things that happen to us during our childhood have lingering effects on us throughout our lives.
Exposure to early adversity affects the developing brains and bodies of children. It affects areas like the nucleus accumbens, the pleasure and reward center of the brain that is implicated in substance dependence. It inhibits the prefrontal cortex, which is necessary for impulse control and executive function, a critical area for learning. And on MRI scans, we see measurable differences in the amygdala, the brain's fear response center.
And it really made me sad to think that he can't acknowledge it, or maybe he really feels like none of this stuff has an impact on him. That just cannot be true. It almost feels like him acknowledging that he has been hurt would be him admitting weakness in a way that would make him vulnerable. And Kevin, when talking about his mom, paints her as this angelic figure, this perfect figure, and his dad, on the other hand, is like, he's the villain. You know, he was the addict, he left them, he couldn't care for his kids. But that's not really how it works. You know, in life, one person is not the perfect angel and one person is not the villain. It's much more complicated than that. And I think we see that in how he talks about when he was a kid, his mother wanted to make sure that he stayed out of trouble because his brother had gotten into some trouble. And she kept him busy all the time, and he protested and he didn't want to do it. She ignored him.
The schedule that she designed didn't leave room for anything but hustle.
And that sets the stage for workaholic Kevin that we see today. Just based on this series, Kevin Hart wants us to think of him as the hardest working man in show business. But it's pretty clear that he developed that unrelenting work ethic, that drive, 1, because of coercion, 2, because he's running away from some super, super painful stuff, and 3, because he constantly lives in fear of being broke.
There's a panic. What if it does stop?
Where does that come from?
Being broke. Being broke is where that comes from.
I know I've been going on about this workaholic thing in the last couple of videos, but I really, really believe this. I believe that it is possible to work hard. I believe it's possible to produce great work without being a workaholic. I do not think that there is a scenario where an obsession with achievement, an obsession with working all the time and running yourself into the ground, I just do not think that that is something that we should aspire to. Make great stuff. Save yourself, though.
The thing is, and when I started, I had all these grand ambitions of what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, and I want to be the biggest movie star in the world. So I studied that and I worked out and I got my body crazy and I did just got my head around doing everything I could do to be the biggest movie star in the world. And then I had a taste of that, and I realized that even though I had achieved all those things, on the inside, I was still that same insecure little boy that was trying to prove something to, girls that had cheated and to my father and all of that. And that you can't achieve your way out of your childhood wounds and traumas.
I do think it's strange that we celebrate people ignoring their feelings and needs because that best meets the demands of capitalism. As a former workaholic, I was a workaholic from when I was a little kid to, a couple years ago. And I was using work as a coping mechanism. I was using work to avoid having to deal directly with trauma. But I did not need more work. I needed care. And I think a lot of us are opting into work so that we can opt out of care. And that's how we end up seeing Kevin Hart saying, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm talking about all of this terrible stuff that happened to me and I haven't showered in 3 days, but everything is normal. We can find great joy in our work, and doing the work can be a mode of catharsis. But work is not therapy. And then we're introduced to his dad. His dad's nickname is Spoon for his last name Witherspoon. And he's just an old trifling man. It's like, why do all old trifling men do the same stuff? They all behave the same way. Kevin's dad had a whole bunch of kids, and I did wonder, do you keep in contact with all your kids or just the rich famous one? Which, okay, but he did bring one of his daughters with him to visit Kevin and his family, and I so appreciated the candor of those interactions. It was awkward, it was uncomfortable. We had Spoon asking Kevin for money in there. I did, though, think there are some conversations that they need to have. I was sitting there watching y'all need to work through some stuff. This man is sickly. We also get this picture of Kevin's wife, Iniko, as this long-suffering companion. In the sit-down interviews, she does seem very happy and positive and upbeat. But it also seems like in a lot of those more candid shots, she's fussing. He's not home. He's late. He needs to go take a shower. And maybe she has to worry just a little bit about whether or not he's being faithful to her. We will come back to that. To his credit, he seems like a man who's trying to be a good father. Though, I don't know. Maybe we do give too much credit to men for being good dads. Because I think that the credit that we give men for trying to be good fathers is what stops them from being great fathers. This idea of him being gone a lot comes up a few times in this series. And if the people who are closest to you are over and over again saying, he's gone, he works all the time, I want him to slow down, maybe you should listen to that. I do think we make way too many excuses for men being absent. We excuse men being absent in their homes in ways that we would never excuse women.
There's times I tell him to slow down, but it's just in him. He's a hustler. He's not going to just sit down and be content. He has to keep going.
And Kevin says the typical thing, I'm doing it for them.
Would it be better for Nico and the kids if I would stop touring? Of course. But my response is, ain't gonna be no goddamn home. Because last I checked, I'm doing it. I'm doing it for you guys. I want the legacy of our last name to mean something.
But if the people in your family are saying, hey, our lives are worse when you're not around and you're already rich and famous, are you really doing it for them? It seems to me like he's doing it more for his own ego. For people who are into the business of entertainment, there is some interesting stuff in here about how Kevin is trying to make a remake of the movie Uptown Saturday Night. That's a movie from 1974, directed by Sidney Poitier. It co-starred Bill Cosby. He wants to remake it. He approached Chadwick Boseman and Idris Elba. I mean, it was the less interesting stuff, but it's there. Okay, but let's get to his friends, because that's interesting too. Kevin loves his friends. He keeps them around him all the time. He employs them. And I do think it's commendable how he has provided opportunities for them. He does seem to be genuinely invested in their success. And we know that so many men out here are lonely. They do not have intimate friendships. They do not have that connection. And it affects their physical lives. It affects their emotional lives. And I do just like to see black men coming together, hanging out, talking about their daddy issues, talking about what it means to be a father. That's interesting. Though I will say, it does seem like the friends don't have real conversations. Are they holding each other accountable? Because we're about to talk about that cheating scandal. And it didn't seem like, from what we saw, that anybody really sat him down and was like, what's going on? What you doing? Even one of his friends said that Kevin Hart is trying to build this family structure around him. He's trying to build this family that he didn't have. That's, look, childhood trauma shows up in interesting ways. I do think that things get trickier and messier when somebody is your friend, but you're also signing their paycheck. And I think that came up in a pointed way. There's this scene toward the end of the series where Kevin and his friend / personal trainer, they get into this big argument.
You sound dumb.
Ronald.
No, I'm serious.
Take his shit.
Fuck you and everything you say.
Stand the fuck down, man.
And he blows up at the trainer, or the trainer blew up at him, and it almost comes to blows. I can't be friends with somebody who would treat me like that. Kevin was being straight up abusive. But the friend / trainer, he needs a paycheck. So even if you don't necessarily want to mend the friendship, do you want to keep getting checks? I know that, that stuff is real messy and nobody really wants to talk about it. And I understand why that's not going to be explored in this kind of documentary. But all the time while I was watching, I was like, yeah, but y'all gotta act right and y'all have to appease Kevin. Otherwise, you can't pay your bills. Another thing about that blow up on the plane was Kevin, despite trying to tell us that he's perfectly fine and nothing bothers him, he finally had to admit that a betrayal that he had experienced was affecting how he was interacting with his friends. Eniko gets a lot of space in this series, as she should. That's his wife, and Kevin says that Eniko is his partner. Now, they're doing a whole lot to kind of counter the narrative around how Kevin and Eniko got together. The rumor is Kevin was still married. Eniko came in as the homewrecker, stole Kevin away from his first wife. I mean, I don't believe in homewrecker narratives at all, right? I do not believe that women can wreck homes. I do believe that you can be a willing participant in the demise of someone's marriage. And the question is, was Eniko that? Now, Eniko says no.
I can't do with a married man. That's just not me.
Kevin says no.
Reality is, I was done with my first marriage. We were done.
Tori Hart, the ex-wife, says yes.
People are calling her out because they're saying, hey, if that's the timeline, then you must have been, messing around or something.
I mean, numbers don't lie. Dates don't lie.
There was this whole big cheating scandal with Kevin Hart where he had to come out and say,
I made a bad error in judgment and put myself in an environment where only bad things can happen, and they did.
What made headlines from this series was Eniko sitting down and saying tearfully,
Yeah, it was a lot for me, but, we've been through it. We've gone through it. We're past it, and he's a better man now because of it. So I can't, I'm happy that it kind of happened.
There's so much judgment around that. And, she does look foolish saying that. It does. It feels wrong for a woman to say that my husband is a better husband and father now because he cheated on me. It's really sad that in so many hetero romantic relationships that we imagine suffering as being a prerequisite for being loved the way that we deserve to be loved. But I also think that in all of that, Eniko was just saying what she needed to say to make it through. She didn't want to leave her husband. She was pregnant when the story broke. The way that you make sense of it all is say it happened because that was what is supposed to happen, and now we're all better for it, and I'm thankful for it. And honestly, that kind of thinking is what we see from a lot of religious people and pseudo-religious people. I'm saddened by it, and I'm like, girl. But I'm not surprised by it. It is really sad that Eniko was, 7-8 months pregnant, and then she has paparazzi chasing her, asking her about her husband having sex with somebody else. That's devastating. And it doesn't matter how I feel about whether or not Eniko broke up someone's home, which I don't believe in that. Am I surprised that Kevin Hart cheated? No. Am I surprised that Eniko stayed? No. Eniko doesn't really seem like the type of woman to have an exit strategy. Do I think that Eniko wanted to live an incredibly rich and privileged life and she's happy to be a lady of leisure? Yes. And that comes with stuff. That comes with sacrifices. It comes with trade-offs. And do I think that that is going to be the last time that Kevin cheats? Come on. Come on. I'm not even gonna say it, but come on. And even the story around the cheating is really sketchy. His friends were calling it was supposed to make it better. It didn't. Kevin calling them on a Thursday and being like, I'm going to Vegas tomorrow. Why? For what? Not for work. You have a pregnant wife at home. Where are you going? But then the craziest thing about it was Kevin Hart cheated. It got filmed. And them, the friends coming out and being like, I just wish I'd been there to protect him. What? He chose that. You know, how do you know that he wouldn't have cheated even if you were there? It's not like he was robbed at gunpoint. He had sex with somebody who wasn't his wife. And I believe that all of this happens in episode 3 in case you want to go back and watch it. But I was so perplexed by how they tried to make Kevin out to be the victim there. Apparently, we saw everything recorded because one of his former friends set up a camera, which is sad, but Kevin still chose to have sex with somebody who was not his wife. The way that they set it up for Kevin to be betrayed and hurt and all, and I'm like, you cheated! You made that choice! There's a real refusal to accept accountability there. Why do you need your friends around you to tell you not to cheat? They really tried to make Kevin the victim. And it is sad that his friend set him up. But what does it say that the former friend knew him well enough to know that he was gonna go cheat? And that the friend could set up a hidden camera to catch him in the act. When he was talking about the cheating and how it hurt Eniko, he did seem very remorseful and like, who am I to say that he's faking it or he's not being sincere? I don't know. All I know is I don't want to chastise people who make mistakes and then decide to do better. But it is really frustrating as a black woman to see black men get to be 40 and 50 years old before they say, oh, maybe I should not be terrible. You know, oh, all that bullshit that I did before, oh, that wasn't right. I'm sorry I hurt you. We do want to see people make a change. It's just frustrating that that change requires people to be dragged through the mud and be cheated on and hurt and lied to. And then we see Kevin open the movie Night School, which co-starred Tiffany Haddish. It wasn't for me. I didn't see the movie, but the movie was basically panned by every critic imaginable. Now, as a critic, you know that I was interested in the part where Kevin was like pacing around his hotel room being like,
ultimately, you just let the talkers talk. Let them talk. There's nothing bad about it. Go ahead, talk. Bulletproof armor.
There's only so many times that you can say, I'm unbothered, I don't care, before you really start to look very bothered. And look, I know that making things is hard, being criticized is hard, but when he talked about sending the critic who panned Get Hard an $8,000 bottle of wine, I'm like, is that a flex? Because I would love an $8,000 bottle of wine, okay? If Tyler Perry today sent me like a YSL handbag out of spite, are you kidding? Girl, y'all will see that handbag in every single video. All right, let's get to the juicy part and probably why this entire thing was made. So in the fall of 2018, it was announced that Kevin was going to be the host of the Oscars in 2019. And so if you're a mainstream comedian, the Oscars is like the creme de la creme, like that's your zenith. And he was super excited to do it. But after it was announced, people dug up his old tweets and parts of his stand-up special where he was just being homophobic. And we're not gonna debate it. We're not gonna argue back and forth about it. That's what it was. So after that stuff was uncovered by people who are new to Kevin Hart, the Oscars wanted him to apologize, right? Like, this is entertainment. We're not gonna be homophobic out here. Say you're sorry. And that's where things went downhill. I knew about the controversy. I knew what went down. But when I was watching this, it was just really hilarious and sad how arrogant he was.
My team calls me, oh my God, Kevin, the world is upset about tweets you did years ago. Oh my God. If you don't believe that people change, grow, evolve as they get older, I don't know what to tell you.
He didn't even have the decency
to get out of bed.
He didn't call the publicist. Instead, he decided to make these stupid Instagram videos. And it is crazy to see what was happening on the inside, because as an outsider, you're looking at it go down like, where are your people? But the people were right there.
Public perception is that he didn't want to apologize, therefore he is homophobic. I think everybody saw the Martin Luther King quote that he tweeted out last night. We said that was the wrong move. You're not Martin Luther King.
They were telling him the right thing to do, even his friends.
Gave it a half-ass. Y'all people crazy out here. What?
Fucking diamond chains on.
Jesus Christ.
He saw everybody just looking stressed out. The publicist, the brand manager, all the other people who work for his company, everybody was looking stressed because they knew that all he had to do was apologize. We see him 9 days after all of this goes down, finally sitting down with his team and saying,
Me not apologizing again isn't being insensitive to the gay community at all. It's me trying to take a stand.
It's quite sad because in this moment, Kevin chose his pride over his career. He wanted to make himself into a martyr, and it caused so much unnecessary suffering. Why? And then finally, after a month, he went on Ellen. And you know, Ellen doesn't have any politics. You know, Ellen's politics are rich woman. Stubbornness will really have you fucked up out here. All you had to do was come out and say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that stuff. I'm not a homophobe. And so now people who don't watch this documentary are going to forever know you as the homophobe who was supposed to host the Oscars, but who refused to apologize. The final part of this series is Kevin walking back those statements and saying how he was wrong and how he should have admitted that he was wrong and just apologized and hosted the Oscars.
I missed an opportunity to say simply that I don't condone any type of violence in any way, shape, or form to anyone for being who they are.
I do appreciate that. Again, you know, I don't want to chastise people for coming to the right conclusion at the wrong time, but you do have to wonder, are you just doing this so that you can rehabilitate your career? Are you doing this because you know that homophobes are not gonna make it too long in mainstream white Hollywood? Or are you doing it because you really had a genuine change of heart? I don't know. None of us will ever know. But like, those are questions that people are always gonna have. Oh, and we do get at the end, Kevin's dad saying some really touching things to him.
You ever told Kevin that he would want it?
It is one thing, you know, I guess it's thank you.
All right, so what did we get from this? Kevin Hart is a narcissist, but I do think that there is a certain amount of narcissism that you have to succeed in Hollywood. But, you know, that same narcissism is what almost completely derailed his career. So you gotta be able to check it. This man fucked up so bad that he had to release a 6-part docu-series. Overall, this series had some moments. It did, you know, there was some good stuff in there, but it was too shiny. It was too polished. And I think that that's why people don't love documentaries made by the subject, because you're gonna try to manipulate us if you have the opportunity. You don't want us to see the rough parts, the jagged edges. You know, you want us to think that you're showing us the jagged edges, but that's not really what we're getting. And that's what Don't Fuck This Up is. Ultimately, I came away from it thinking, you know, Kevin Hart is doing a lot better than most of us outwardly, but inside, stuff ain't right. And becoming a billionaire is not gonna fix it. Giving your friends cars is not gonna fix it. Like, that stuff that's broken, that stuff requires real work. Kevin is great at making himself the victim. He did it in the cheating scandal. He did it with the Oscar thing. Like, he repeats over and over again, I have a target on my back. I have a target on my back. They want me to do this. They want me to do that. You know, maybe you do have a target on your back. Lots of rich and famous people do. But like, what are you doing to contribute to that? That's what I felt when I was watching this. Oh, well, that's all I have to say on that, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram, just the DMs. I'm not on the timeline, but hit me up in the DMs. I do see them. Shout out to all the patrons on Patreon. I did say I'm trying to be more organized with my content. So the next video I'm going to make is going to be a patrons only live. I think it's going to be a live stream about Meghan Markle. Everybody wants me to talk about this. We're going to talk about it. That's going to be patrons only. Sign up for the Patreon if you want to hear me talk about some royal foolishness, like ridiculousness. It's going to be a fun time. Buy some merch at shopforharriet.com. I am looking to do live events this year to see y'all, talk to y'all, look y'all in the eyes. So I'm very open to venue suggestions. If you have some venue hookups, I'll take that too. You know where to find me. Let's make this happen. 2020 is the year that I get out of the living room. That's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.